Teachers of Reddit, what's the funniest excuse a student gave for not doing homework? One of my students came in dead serious and told me he couldn't do his homework because his little cousin accidentally summoned demons in his room the night before. I was already trying not to laugh, but then he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper with random symbols drawn on it as evidence. The whole class went silent waiting for my reaction. I asked him, so the demons only attacked your math homework? Without missing a beat he goes, yeah, they hate algebra. Even I had to give him points for commitment. They did their homework the night before, but walking to school that morning they saw a horrible car accident and had to use their homework paper as a tourniquet so the victim wouldn't bleed out. I'm sorry I didn't give you my paper on time. I was shot. Her hand was wrapped up in bandages the size of a puppy, and she had 2 fingers missing. She told the truth. The kicker is, I got this same excuse a year later from another student who had also been shot in the hand. Judging from the obvious bullet hole in his palm, he was not lying either. That they had high-fived a cactus over the weekend while drunk and were no longer able to write. Turns out they did high-five a cactus and ended up in the emergency room to have several cactus spines removed from their hand. They ended up needing stitches. This was a high school student. Not a teacher, but back in high school a kid brought in a note from his mum saying he couldn't do homework because he was constipated. Teacher looked at him dead serious and asked her, "What, is your brain in your backside?" Whole class lost it. A teacher at my school once told us that his dog really did eat his homework once. So if we could provide proof, then he would accept almost any excuse for not handing in homework. One day in 1982, I told my teacher I couldn't turn in my report because our computer died. She didn't believe me. I showed her the floppy disk with my report, but she didn't buy it. She didn't believe I used a computer and didn't believe I couldn't use one of the computers in the typing room to print it out. I tried to explain that an Apple II was completely incompatible with an HP machine so the disk wouldn't even read, but she didn't want to hear it. I had to have my parents come down and explain computers to Mrs. Tyler. Once she accepted that I wasn't lying, she, grudgingly, gave me an extension along with a lecture about following instructions. I'm still not sure what the lecture had to do with anything. In the end, I went to the computer lab at the university, Dad was a professor, and printed a copy of my report. When I handed it in, obviously printed on a dot matrix printer attached to a computer, Mrs. Tyler gave me the filthiest look. My pig ate my homework. We live in the suburbs. Maybe she really had a pet pig, but otherwise she at least gets points for creativity. In 8th grade I told my teacher my dog ate my homework, and she asked me to bring the dog in as proof. I didn't have a dog. Longest silence of my life. I once got a doctor's note from a student and I looked up the doctor. It was a veterinarian. Bow wow on that one. Student not teacher. But I went to the same school as my mother did. My rashity old music teacher remembered and was just a little bit in love with my mother, to the point where he called me Catherine for 5 years, got super pissed when I didn't respond to it, and even more so when I wouldn't let the rancid old fucker volunteer me to do shit. Surprisingly, my name is not Catherine. Every time he tried demanding I hand in homework, get my head of year and even my mother involved. I'd point out he assigned the homework to my mother, not me, and it was against school rules to do other people's homework. In all 5 years it did not improve. I found out midway through my 2nd year my mother had never liked him either, so I became even less inclined to be even civil. Got a letter from a parent explaining the daughter had been reliving the traumatic experience of her uncle's death in a motorcycle accident. Legit letter, and she was utterly devastated. I did what we do, of course. I discovered at the parents' evening the next month that he died 8 years before she was born. Still a more honest display of grief than I've seen a Ricker Kirk vomit up, mind you. Not a teacher. But I was a farm kid and we had an orphaned lamb living in the house because it needed to be bottle fed and kept warm, so we had it in a cordoned off part of the living room. I had left my business homework out and my lamb ate half the page. I had to bring this half-eaten page to my super stern, never laughed or smiled. Business teacher and sheepishly go, "I'm sorry, my lamb ate my homework." I also presented the page as proof. He stared. He then said if it was any other student, he wouldn't have believed them. Dog ate my homework, lol. Not a teacher, but once my cat literally ate my homework and I was so afraid the teacher would think it was a lie. I lied and said I didn't do it. I just realized that I can't remember the last time a kid gave me an excuse for not doing their homework. I think that's a thing of the past. He couldn't figure it out after skipping 3 weeks of lab, designed to help people figure it out. I teach piano and had a kid once say I couldn't practice because I had to go to piano. Not a teacher, but when I was in high school there was a kid who forgot to write an essay for English class. He printed out 3 pieces of paper that said a printing error 7398E in 72 points font, brought them into class and explained to the teacher that he wrote the essay, but his printer was malfunctioning. The teacher told him he could just email her when he got home that afternoon. He then emailed her a Word doc that said email error 4483 on 3 pages. He got an extra week to write his paper while his computer errors resolved. A relative of a big-budget airline founder should have handed her art coursework in after Christmas, but she left it in Monaco. Not har funny, but a funny. I had a student say that she did her HW, but her baby spilled liquid foundation on it. She showed me what she was able to salvage. I gave her another copy and an extension. I told my teacher straight up no, and I guess she was too exhausted and gave me a passing grade. My 6th grade smart ass edgelord said he identifies as an idiot and his pronouns are dumb or ass. It wasn't homework but just nothing to turn in at the end of the lesson. He's always saying the best stuff, but I have to act stoic. I'm not a teacher but a student. A couple of weeks ago our teacher assigned us homework in the book which we use from time to time but not always. So the next day teacher asks us if we did the homework as one of the pick-me girls gets up and starts opening the closets at the side of the room. She asks why she got up so suddenly. I left my book in the closets. Why is it not still in here? Teacher, just sit down. Seriously, why can't I find it? Turns out she placed her book into the closets in the previous semester before we changed classrooms, so she did not have to do her work. Not an excuse, but had a student write their homework on paper towel once, because they had no lined paper at home. I was so proud of their ingenuity. Well, I'm not a teacher, but I once heard a kid say that they couldn't do their homework because their goldfish had drowned. I'm not a teacher, but I worked with 16 to 19-year-olds in an education setting. Some of my favorite absence reasons were, I've got to sort out something with my dog. What the dog do? I accidentally left the bath running and flooded the house and I've got to clean it up before my parents get home. I've got blepharitis. This one had me absolutely rolling because my partner is an ophthalmologist and I am very aware that blepharitis will not prevent you from attending an hour-long online class. Contrast that with a student who only had ONE absence unrelated to other school commitments, and it was because their dad was arrested in their home about 20 minutes before the class started.